welcome back to the Unnamed Fitness Podcast. This is episode, 13 now. Actually.
Let's go with 13.
Let's go with 13,
Yeah,
13 or 2, depending on if we're doing this is like the Unknown
Season
Fitness.
2,
Season 2,
episode
or like
2.
Unknown Fitness Podcast Reloaded, or Retribution, Revolution, whatever, generic sequel names for things. Resurgence. It usually always starts with an R. Yeah. That's what you find. It's always R words that start with this. Rebooted, yeah. Nice. Yeah, there's loads of them. I think the Matrix trilogy is always infamous for that.
Yeah,
Reloaded
100%.
and Revolution, they started that whole thing off.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome back to episode 2. So I've got a couple of things I wanted to talk about a little bit. I think last time we did last time we were doing the podcast, we were both pretty injury riddled.
Yes.
Last time I remember.
We were.
I was trying to sort my tennis elbow out. Or golfer's elbow, whatever the fuck elbow. Climber's elbow. Yeah, and actually, to be fair, since then, I've basically got rid of it, which has been amazing. I'm slowly trying to ramp up the volume a bit more now. I need to just climbing. January was like the best month I've ever had climbing wise. Late December, January, I was just climbing at a level I haven't climbed before. And I've had a little bit of a shit 2 weeks, but I think now I'm at a point where I just need to increase the amount of climbing volume I'm doing. So I'm trying to find a strategy to sort of just increase the amount of time I'm in the gym, just on the wall. And I'm thinking about going into doing low volume, high intensity sessions where I do like hard boulders, hop on the board, do really, really hard climbing. And then the other sessions are like high volume, low intensity. So like 2-3 grades below my max. Do a shitload of it, a lot of stuff on the circuits. Maybe I'll go to the rope gym just to do easy longer routes, just to increase endurance. So there's like the power and strength and then endurance side, and then just flip-flopping between the two, basically. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Just to increase the amount I'm doing in the gym, improving the endurance and increasing strength and power. And the only issue with that a lot of the time in concurrent training is it's hard to get the progress on each can be very slow. Yeah. If you pick one thing generally at a time, you can generally improve that. And then you can put that on the back burner while you try and improve the other thing. But I think a lot of, for me now, as well as strength, generally it's just skill acquisition and just motor learning and being on the wall. So the more I'm just in the gym, I'll improve anyway. And I think going more frequently will be that kind of change in stimulus that I need to just see the improvements that I want. Because I've got a goal right now. The highest grade I've climbed is V6, or my next goal is V7. So I'm hoping that maybe once I've done a 6-week block like this, my exclusive goal is going to be like, right, I want to get that V7 grade. I'm going to find a boulder in the gym and be like, right, I'm committing myself to that V7.
I think what you're trying to do there works in I'd say every sport training, whatever it might be. Yeah. And it's going there and it's just repeating things over and over again. It's consistency. Yeah. I was talking with somebody that's trying to get a 5K, and they're like, I want to get a 5K PR in like 2 weeks' time. It's like, no, you want to get a 5K PR in 12 weeks' time. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like you aren't going to make the gains you need to make in 2 weeks. It's like what you need to be doing is just
programming,
working over and over again. You need to be working fast. You need to be working slow. Like you said, they need to be going intense. You need to be going easy, and so on. And I think that's the mistake that people make all the time is they just instantly think about the goal and they don't think about the effort it takes to get that goal. The long term. I talked about this in the last podcast where I'm going to be racing a horse in June, but I'm currently 17 weeks out from that, but I'm already treating that like a big marathon block. Yeah, right. Because I have to build up that endurance, have to build up that pace and that skill of trail running and so on. And that's just a huge thing. I see this in the gym so many times where people get in the squat rack and they put all the plates on and then they can't lift it. You put so much effort into thinking about what you could lift and how it would look and all of these things that you forget the fact that you actually, the one thing you're trying to do, which is lift that weight, you're not ready for it yet. And like you're saying there about the kind of grade of bouldering that you want to achieve, that's your end goal. But you understand that it's like you have to put the work in to get to that point. Yeah, and it's the same with anything. And of course, and I think that's how you progress in sports and activities and so on, is as soon as you've got that one and you can comfortably achieve that one, because you don't just achieve it once, you need to be able to work at that level. You then move on to the next level. So whatever that might be, bouldering and so on.
One thing I've also got outdoor projects that I'm working on as well. So I'm trying to get a bit better at doing the outdoor stuff. And I found my own personal like project and place that no one's ever been to or done before that I'm working on right now, which is so much fun. Trying to figure that thing out. But I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they try and get too sport specific in the gym sometimes. So say you're trying to get better at football. I mean, the best way generally to get better at football is playing football. And when you try and mimic too much of what football is like, all the gym is for in regards to sport is just strengthening your body to handle the pressures of the sport itself. 100%. You're not trying to like mimic everything in like, if you want to get better at like kicking a football, there's things you can do on like you want to increase your power putting into the ball, right? There's things you can do in the gym on a muscular level to improve the muscles in the necessary areas to do so. But you just need to kick the ball a shitload of times into a goal. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to get better at dribbling, fucking dribble.
It's the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah, literally.
It's as simple as that. If you want to get good at something, you put the time and the effort in. Now, there are going to be times where 10,000 hours is an obvious exaggeration. But I think the sentiment is accurate. You want to do something, you do it over and over and over again. And it's as simple as that. I go to the gym to be a better runner. Okay, but going to the gym doesn't make me run better.
No, right.
Running makes me run better.
Yeah, right.
Going to the gym just makes me physically stronger.
It's foundational
work. Starts to bulletproof me and so on. And I can obviously work injuries. I can rehabilitate injuries, whatever it might be. I'm doing a lot of leg work at the moment because I've got a trail race coming up. And I need strong hips. I need strong core. I need strong ankles, etc., etc.
Sorry, Karen.
And it all just plays into it. There's supplements to whatever your core thing is. When I was fighting, for example, I spent the bulk of my time in fight gyms. Learning to fight. I wasn't going to the gym lifting weights so that I had bigger biceps, because that doesn't make me a better fighter.
No,
it might make me stronger. I might have better shoulders. I might be able to hold myself for longer. Whatever it might be, but the only way I got better at fighting, the only way I got better at jiu-jitsu, whatever it was by doing those skills.
Eventually, I think you sometimes find people that their strength is a limitation sometimes. Like, so for example, I work a lot with external rotational work because it pulls you into the wall, right? But when I'm on the wall and I need to use that external rotation, it's like only a part of the puzzle when I'm on the wall. It's like, where is the rest of my body position? Like, I'm now better at doing this, but are my hips mobile? Am I this and that? Are my feet in the right place? Am my body in the right place? Am I holding the hand? Like, have I got the right body position? There's so many other things. It's just like the gym will support the little pieces of the puzzle. And I think sometimes people might have a strength discrepancy somewhere that they need to maybe do a block where they dedicate to the gym. Well, that's why off seasons are a thing. That's what you've got the off season for. In a lot of these things, and you have a training camp where you maybe commit a bit more to strength and conditioning just to get yourself into fight shape, right? I guess that's what camps are a bit more. But when you're out of camp, you're not doing as nearly as much strength and conditioning work, right? You're just merely just skill acquisition and all that kind of thing and going through the motions. So like strength and conditioning does have a time and a place. But I think for me, what I've been doing for quite a while now, I've been doing 2 gym days and 2 climbing days generally a week and a couple of cardio days, like HIIT training days. But now I'm going to cut down to 1 gym day and do 3 climbing days just to switch the thing over a bit so I can allow more time. I'll do that for a bit. And then when my body maybe feels a bit battered at the end of 6 weeks, I'll take a climbing day off, put another gym day in, and then I'm going to get the strength back up and then just flip flop between those 2 things. Because a lot of time it's injury mitigation. It's like you have your peak and then you can't sustain top level performance indefinitely. It's impossible. You need to have phases and times, like time in and away from what it is you're actually doing.
100%. I got injured last year, built back up from that injury, and then I spent the entire November, December, most of January doing easy running, low heart rate, low 120s, nothing at all that I would consider fast running, and just building up my base, my endurance. And it was just going back to what you're saying there. It's like I was just having that off season. I wasn't running at my peak performance. There was no fast work. There was no, what's my 5K time? What's my 20? I didn't even consider those things. It was just getting out there consistently and moving. And all I was doing was just building a base. And every single run would just start to see my heart rate improve a little bit, to the point where I was going out for an hour and maximum heart rate at about 123, 124. Once I start that marathon block, that then starts to change. I've already built that base. I don't have none of my marathon block is building my base. What it is now is building off of my base. So now what I can start to do is add in those faster works. I start to add in some of the high heart rate stuff. I'm getting up into the 160s, the 170s, and I'm really working hard. Start to add in those really fast intervals, like overpace training and things like that. And that's what I'll do in this block up to my race, or until I've peaked for my race. I'm not going to come out the back of that race the next day and be like, right, let's go get a fast session in. I'm going to go back into that maintenance mode and start to recover and back off, let my body recover from what essentially has been 3.5 months of hard, solid training. And again, it goes back to what you said there. You can't peak all the time.
No.
You can't run at 100% all the time. You hear it in the gym, and it's a frustration that I think people have in the gym is, I lifted this weight last week. It's like, well, yeah, you did. You aren't going to lift your PR week after week after week after week.
No.
Yeah, you might lift your PR, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in a year. You might break your PR
the
once.
longer that journey you go on your journey, the more time you need to achieve small increments. That's just how it works.
Again, going back to running, I've got a 5K PR time. I very much doubt that I'm ever going to beat that again. My 5K PR I put in like 2 years ago. To be fair, I hate running 5K because it's probably the most painful pace there is if you're going all out trying to get PR. But it's done. I can't, just because I can run that pace, it doesn't mean that I go out every single run and I run that pace.
No, yeah.
Very often I'll go out and do a 5K that's 10 minutes slower than my PR. Just to cover 5K and so on. And that's, I think, is the mistake that people make. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you can do it every single time.
No, because that's what peaking is for. That's what it's called, peaking. And then you have a peak and a taper, and then you go for the actual thing. That's what 5 to 7 day taper is for. Where your recovery is spot on. You're like well recovered and still like all the strength acquisition you've done at that time is perfect. Come fight day or whatever it is, you're perfect. And then you can't then, generally there comes a lot of, when ramping up volume to that extent, there comes such a high risk of injury. 100%. Because you're pushing your body to a limit to achieve its limit. You can't sustain that.
How many times do you see that in the UFC someone got injured fight week?
Yeah, it happens all
so
the time.
It's so common.
Yeah.
I've obviously seen that
2 weeks out from a fight, 3 weeks out from a fight.
Because for most people...
It's always sparring, not gonna lie. Most people fucking sparring. Like Tyson Fury recently just got caught with the elbow, right?
Yeah.
And cut his fucking...
And this is the thing, and it's the same with all of these events, is first of all, people leave their kind of taper week too close. There's this mentality in athletes, isn't it, that you want to be working hard right up to the event.
Yeah, give yourself, I think, anything more than a week is too much. But anything less than like 4 or 5 days, maybe. You can do some light work. I'm not saying sit on the couch for a week and do nothing.
You should be working all of that time. So I've tapered for 4 different sports. So I'll just put running as a generalisation.
Yeah, right.
Okay, because obviously you might taper for a marathon different than you might taper for a 5K race. But tapered for jiu-jitsu, tapered for MMA, I've tapered for Muay Thai. Now I know those are all combat sports, but you do taper in different ways because time of the weigh-in, the different weights that you might be fighting, things like that. Jiu-jitsu, for example, you literally weigh and step onto the mat. More often than not, Muay Thai, you'll be weighing the morning of the fight, and obviously MMA's the day before.
That's another thing, when you've got to cut weight as well, you're not going to have the volume the same level as you had it when you were not cutting weight.
The week of cutting weight for a day before weigh-in is hell. I've done it so many times and I got really, really good at it, but it is miserable.
Yeah, right.
And to think that you can perform at your peak whilst you're not even on a calorie deficit, you're like starving yourself. Yeah, you spend the first half of the week oversaturating yourself with water, and you spend the second half of the week getting all of that water out of your body. So you're dehydrated, you're hungry. You're like, how do you perform at a high level? So of course people get injured that week because they're training too hard. They get ill that week because they're training too hard. All of these things are happening to our body as a result of starving ourselves.
And any niggles you picked up during during camp. It's just then going to be like well on show, or during maybe you might even crop up in the fight.
100%. So for people to think that they could do it, and of course this comes with time. The more experienced people are, the better they get at cutting weight, the more they understand the importance of a taper. It's a lot of the guys that are kind of early into it, it's like, I need to be fighting all the way up to the end. And it's like, you really don't. But that tapering week is just so important. It's just a chance for your body to, like, you aren't going to lose everything that you've just spent weeks and months training for.
No.
You suddenly don't forget how to fight. You suddenly don't forget how to run. All of that's in there. If you're going through these motions, then it's probably because you're competing. So you've probably got a decent kind of mental capacity, which means on the day you are going to be competitive and that kind of thing, because let's be fair, it's a choice to compete. So if you're of that nature, then you're putting yourself forward to do it. So that isn't going to be an issue. Your like say, your mental capacity isn't just going to change in a week. You're obviously going to have doubts and they're going to creep in, but come fight day, you're still going to be a competitor. So that isn't going to change. All you're doing is just letting your body recover, getting rid of inflammation, just allowing it to calm itself down so that you're going into your event, whether it be a fight, a run, whatever it is, recovered, ready to go. And it's a lot easier these days, obviously, with sort of like digital tracking devices and things like that, where it will be telling you, you'll probably see the first few days of your taper, especially if you're cutting weight, your heart rate's going to be elevated and all of these kind of things. Your sleep isn't going to be great. But as the taper week goes on, you'll start to see your heart rate coming down. You'll start to see your sleep probably increase and things like this. You'll have those moments of kind of nervousness, especially with fighting, where it creeps into your mind a little bit and you kind of get a bit of split-second stuff. But generally, you will see a trend that lines you up perfectly for the fight day or the day before, whatever it might be. So that's when people then start to feel it. And of course, come fight day, everything from that week's gone anyway.
Yeah, once you've loaded
come
up
race
again,
day, it's all gone anyway. It's like as soon as you get there and you toe the line, it's you're good to go, and it all just kind of kicks in. But yeah, you have to absolutely rest. There's a massive kind of debate that a lot of people have about resting the day before something, and this is a big thing with running. So from a fighting point of view, you would normally cutting weight the day before, like having that real last hard cut. So different when I was fighting Thai, because you would normally weigh in on the morning, but the day before we would normally just like do some really light pads, get ourselves
just keep sharp,
just things like that. And it was just purely, if nothing else, it was to occupy our mind. It was just to get ourselves into that environment. Running, I've always found that if I rest the day before, I'm really clunky on the day of the race. It's that whole thing about just sitting up on the sofa and doing nothing. It's like you stiffen up and all of that kind of thing. So I usually go out and I have like a really, really slow jog. It's not a run, it's just a jog. And I'll kind of go out and get myself moving. And I always find that I do better the next day. I don't know if that's a mental thing or a physical thing, but I just feel
there's individual variation with a lot of this stuff.
Again, I do like to keep moving. So I am of that sort of mindset where it's like I need to be working all the way up to it, but I just understand the importance of stepping back from that movement, so that you're going in there recovered. Your muscles aren't sore. Like I've done strength events in the sense of like high rocks and things like that. And again, it's like if I did a heavy lifting session on the Friday and then on the Saturday I had to do heavy sled pulls and heavy sled pushes and kettlebell runs and all of these kind of things. Now, if I'd lifted heavy the day before, my muscles are going to be fatigued, I'm going to be sore, all of those things are going to suck. If I stop lifting on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, my muscles have recovered perfectly to hit that session on the Saturday with intensity. And that's the importance of just taking those few days out to kind of taper down.
It's interesting though, because I think with like, if you think about like Gen Pop, right, the general population, who aren't going to compete in anything, who aren't planning on, doing any sort of event, and they purely go to the gym to keep fit and healthy, probably don't have to worry about it too much. I mean, I think it's always good to have like phases of training.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're bodybuilding, you're probably more likely the two main phases you have is bulking and cutting. That's generally what you do. I think people underestimate the value of like isocaloric periods where you're just staying, you just go work in maintenance for a bit, because I think you need to adjust your settling points a little bit more. I think it's also nice to have periods of low volume training, and high volume training is always quite nice. I think just to maybe mitigate injury, resensitize the body a little bit more to training, depending what it is you're doing. I think, for most people, you don't need to taper really at any point. I think deloading is weird because they did a study recently on deloading. It doesn't really have much of a resensitization effect necessarily. I don't think, but I think deloading is good for a mental resensitization.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's nice to just like, you could, if you train for like 3 months and you've been pretty hard and you just feel exhausted. I think it's always good to just have a deload week where you maybe go in and just do 1 set on each exercise, just purely for a mental reset more than anything. Give your body a chance to just have a rest. I think, so I think for general people, just like if you feel like you're suffering from burnout, have a little bit of a deload, maybe go through phases of a bit low volume, high volume, see what works for you. I think people underestimate the individuality. Like I think, people will sell programs online, and like generic programs that people can follow. And I think in some respects they can be fine, but the problem is 2 people can do the same program and have 2 completely different results,
100%.
Especially when it comes to athlete training more so than anything else, because people are always going in with individual variation. Like say a vertical jump program for someone, like for 2 different people will achieve, like some person could achieve that, put 10 inches on the vertical jump, which obviously is a bit insane, but someone who put 3 inches on the vertical jump because they probably went in with 2 completely different individual conditions when they started.
Yep.
The program is exactly the same. So I think you kind of have to, the longer you've been training, the longer you understand your body and what you can tolerate. Some people will grow muscle from a very small amount of training. Some people need a shitload. I mean, generally the more you train, generally the more volume you need anyway. Just to get that little bit more stimulus or whatever, but you just feel it out a little bit. I mean, think if training is going to be something you do inevitably, it's all right to take your time, try different things. Like if you're not planning on really doing like competing or really doing anything, you're at the gym because you want to be, take the pressure off yourself and just take time to work things out and what works for you.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I think people just need to find what works for them. They're so obsessed with kind of, if I go to the gym then I should look like this, or if I'm doing this I should look like this, and so on. And it's like, whereas exactly like you said, the majority of people are just going to the gym to feel a little bit better, to look a little bit better. And I do have deloads, but I don't schedule them in. Okay, I do them when you want.
I usually do them at the end of phases.
It's like if I don't feel bad if my legs are sore from an interval session that I did yesterday, but I've got to do squats today. It's like, well, maybe today, rather than going super heavy, because that's what I wrote down, I'll just do more reps, but I'll go lighter. There's things like that.
Auto-regulation is an underestimated factor.
I think this, and again, this comes with experience. I don't mind deviating from the plan, but then I've got years and years of experience in understanding what happens to my body or what works for me mentally or whatever it might be. So if something today just isn't going to work, then I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to work around it. And I think that's what people are kind of a little bit scared of sometimes. It's like, well, the plan says this, or I've seen this guy on YouTube and he's doing this. And it's like, he's doing that because that works for him. He's also possibly selling you something. Okay. Like I am going to have no benefit of going out there and doing, I don't know, Sam Sulek's training program. Okay. It just isn't going to work for me. Whereas if I do what I need to do for myself, what makes me feel good, even if I wasn't running, I would still train very similar to what I'm doing because I like to be fit in the sense I can run. I like to be fit in the sense that I'm strong. I can go run around playing with my kids all day, but I can also throw them over my head if I need to. I can show off in the park and do pull-ups when none of the other dads can and things like this. So it's like I like to be general all round, and that's very much how my training works. And I think that I would train in exactly the same way if I wasn't competing in any format, but I would just tone it back a little bit. I just wouldn't be so committed to it. And I don't mean committed as in I wouldn't rock up. I would still be rocking up and I'd still be doing it. But I'd just be that little bit more chilled about it.
I think one of the biggest issues as well, when you've got so many people online using the phrase, if you want this, do this.
Yeah.
It's just like, it gets so messy. And it's like, I've done that and I haven't got that.
No.
So there's something wrong with me, not the underlying issue of like, that thing didn't work for me. Do you know what I mean? If you want big shoulders, spam this, or like, I got this by doing this. More than likely you didn't.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
so do this workout, have a fast 5K. Simply not true. No one workout gives you a faster 5K
or anything like that.
It's weeks and
talking
weeks
about
of work.
auto-regulation, I think there's a new kind of thing that's kind of been quite popular recently. Annoyingly, it's expensive to implement, and I guess for general population it's not really feasible, but it's like velocity-based training. So like using, I fucking want one of these things where basically you attach like a clip to the barbell and it has a cord attaching to the thing. There's multiple different ones. And then when you're doing your warm-up sets for the day, it already has pre-saved data on you. So it knows your specifications. You do a squat, for example, or a deadlift, it measures the velocity of the bar and it tells you what your working weight should be for that day. It's based on how you feel and what your warm-up sets are, which is so cool. So it will program like the right volume and intensity for that day based on the velocity of the bar. And I think it's actually pretty reliable in terms of like actually how people can progress from it. I don't know, to be fair, I don't know if there's how much data is on it, to be fair, and like how people have tested it. There probably is some studies on it somewhere.
But that rings true, because how many times have you, like, I don't know, I'll just throw a weight at it. Let's say 100 kilos. You put 100 kilos on a bar, you're going to do a back squat. How many times has that just moved beautifully? You've just gone down, you've gone deep, and you've gone straight back up, and it has just moved absolutely perfectly. Then how many times have you walked in there, put exactly that same weight on, and it's literally feeling like you're lifting a house? And if you actually had something that, like you say, can measure that and can tell you, well, do you know what, today's not the day to be lifting that, because to me the feeling I get is like it just feels sticky. It's like it just isn't moving right. And to have something to say, do you know what, 70 kilos, that's where you want to be today.
One thing that I think people should look up is there's this thing called Prilepin's chart, or Prilepin, that's a Russian guy's name. Prilepin's chart, right? I think this is the best thing that people can use, at home without having something that's like velocity-based training. So basically, it was a chart that was invented by the Russians, right, a long time ago. But it basically programs volume for different percentages of your 1RM for the day. So if anyone Googles it and looks it up, you can Google it, which is there's tons of them everywhere. You can see like there's a percentage of 1 rep max to start with. It goes from 55 to 65, 70 to 80, 80 to 90, and 90%, right? The next column, there's reps per set. So it tells you how many reps to do per set.
Brilliant.
The next is the optimal total reps. So it's say if we go 55 to 65% example, the reps per set is 3 to 6. The total reps, the optimal total is 24. And the range of reps is 18 to 30. So basically what that means is, for people, so the optimal total reps, so that's 24. You can break that down with the 3 to 6 as many as you like. So you can do 4 sets of 6 to get you 24. Do you know what I mean? Or like break that down as much as you like. The range of reps gives you 18 to 30. So if you're having a shit day, you do the 18. If you're having a great day, you do the 30. But the 24 would be the optimal amount to not over or under train. So if you're having a really, I mean, for most people, they probably don't need to go to the 30 because that's just an insane amount of volume. But it also means that the rep quality stays really consistent because you're not doing sets of 10 or really crazy sets. You can keep the technique dialed, especially with 90% reps per set is 1 to 2.
Brilliant.
Total is about 7, and the range of reps is 4 to 10. So you might go in and do 4 singles at 90% for the day. That's it. But at most, you might do 7 singles. So like it gives you a kind of a little bit of that auto regulation. If you're having, try and always aim for the optimal, I'd say, or like roughly. I've only implemented this like a little bit with clients. I've done it a little bit myself, and it feels great. I think if you're doing more velocity-based work, I've found that 55 to 65% is too heavy for speed work. I think you need to be around 30 to 40%, I'd say, because with velocity work, the bar speed has to be high, and it just wasn't. 100%. I field tested with someone, it just wasn't fast enough. So I think you need to go a little bit lighter for that. But I think if you're working in 70 to 80, 80, 90, 90%, this chart is amazing for like giving you like a range to work in. The problem is when you're doing sets of 10 or 8 to 10, when you're trying to build strength, like really heavy, like 1RM strength, the technique breaks down. I think that's a massive 100%. Thing. You build up like quite a lot of accumulated fatigue. So if you break it down into these smaller little bite-sized chunks, appropriate rest time is always a massive thing. It's actually super efficient as well. You'll find it's really efficient. We found that like when we were doing it before with even less sets, we found we got so much more done in such a short space of time. So if you're short on time, it's fantastic for that. Get your accessory work in and get out of the gym in 45 minutes.
That's a real key thing. Time as well is there's this massive kind of, I spent 2 hours in the gym.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
I get so much of this.
I fucking hate that.
And we've obviously talked about this before. I'm a lot more time poor than yourself, so I try to do things within a certain window of time. That being said, it's using that time well. So, like you've just said there, it's like if you can get like the minimum and possibly more done in like 45 minutes, that is going to be of the most impact to you, to your goals, then that's what you should be aiming for. so many times, like I have these conversations with people. It's, I was in the gym for like 2 hours yesterday. So yeah, but how much did you work?
And how much did you probably overtrain your ass?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And if you were working that full period of time,
that's way too much. I can already tell you that's way too much.
There's enough studies as well within men that show that once they kind of hit that 45 to 55 minute window, they start to get a massive testosterone drop.
Yeah, there's a huge drop in fatigue.
So once you start to go over, let's say an hour, you're already just running on borrowed time anyway. There's a whole load of things going on in your body that just makes that a non-efficient use of your time.
Well, it gets to a point where the stimulus at the start of the workout will be like this, and the fatigue will be really low, and then eventually that crosses over to the point where you're literally just accumulating fatigue and getting zero stimulus. You're just this complete swap 100%. Over. And I think it's quite, even with like sets to failure when it comes to muscle growth, I think it's honestly between like once you've done 8 to 10 sets, the crossover is nuts. Yeah. Like if you're going in and doing like 20 fucking sets to failure every session for like your whatever it is, that is an insane amount of fucking volume. Yeah. If you can tolerate that, fair play. But like that is an insane amount of sets.
The thing is as well, like like you've just said, it's just completely diminishing returns, and there's absolutely no point in it. The next thing you're doing as well is you're not setting yourself up well for the next day or the day after. You're carrying that fatigue over into. You're carrying it into the rest of your day, so it's probably going to affect your sleep. It's probably going to affect your mental capacity and so on. But you're also physically then carrying it over into the next day. And of course, like, I don't know, my program, for example, where I'm doing a lot of leg work at the moment, if I did back squats and then the next day I've got front squats lined up, but the day before I just absolutely beasted them, then I'm carrying that over into my front squats. Front squats, they're working my legs, but they do work other parts of my body massively and they complement my Olympic lifting. But if I can't demonstrate that activity or that movement correctly because I'm so fatigued from the day before, then that just carries over into that whole of that workout. And it then makes that 1 hour non-productive. And now you're starting to go backwards. And you absolutely just need to think about how you're training, not on a day-to-day basis, how good you looked in that gym when everyone's there, but how you're going on a week, a month.
The main question and like the mystery that so many people are trying to solve is, what's the most work I can do? What's the most effect I can get through the least amount of work?
Yeah.
That's like the ultimate thing, right? Like, how much stimulus can I milk out of this session by doing the least amount possible? Because that is the ultimate kind of thing. And like, it's a nightmare, especially because I'm still early in my PT career, and so I'm still trying to figure out that balance. And this is the thing, stealing from Chris Beardsley a little bit here, but his kind of 4 main strength principles are individuality, variety, progressive overload, and specificity. Brilliant. So if you cover those 4 variables, so like individuality, so catering a program to a certain person, being specific to their goals, overloading what those are, and variety of exercises over time. If you can apply those to most things, you should be really, really good.
That sounds like, for me, something that just resonates with me.
Yeah.
Because when I think about the way I train, I don't train as conventional as a lot of people because of that sense. I do it very specific to myself.
Yeah.
So I speak to a lot of runners and they're like, you need to be doing like 120, 130K a week. And it's like,
that's a made up number though.
It is just an arbitrary number. Somebody's put down. I was like, why? Because I can run, right now, I'm not in half marathon shape, but on 40K a week or less, I could very comfortably run a half marathon in less than 120 right now. And I'm not training for it. So if I trained for it, I could bring that number down considerably. So why do I need to be running 3 times as much as I am now to just add fatigue and unnecessary load to my body when I can get away with doing that over 3 sessions and chipping out about 35 to 40K a week. And those sessions will be a balance of easy running. There'll be high intensity work, so I might be doing like 400s or 800 meter intervals. And there'll be some tempo work. And what I mean by tempo work is I'm running at a pace that I can no longer sustain for over an hour. Okay, so it's not my all-out maximum pace, but it's the maximum amount of work that I could do in an hour. Okay, so it's comfortably uncomfortable, if that kind of makes sense. Okay, so, and I split it amongst those 3 things. Over the course of a week, that's about 35K. Now, as I get closer to a marathon, the volume will start to go up, but only on one of those runs, which will be my long run, because I need to get my body used and I need to get my mind used to being out there running for 2 hours, 3 hours potentially, whatever it might be. And that's it. And even then, last year when I did a marathon, I think my biggest volume week was about 54k. There's marathon runners out there doing 200k a week, yet they're coming in an hour, 2 hours after me. So what benefit was that? So I think you absolutely have to find what works for you, for your time. And then like you've just said, it's like, what's the biggest bang for your buck?
Bang. It's all about bang for your buck. And I think people always worry that when they do like certain things and they move between, I think people spend 2 hours in the gym because they feel like they need to cover like all ground at all times. Like it's okay. This is what programming and phases and periodization is for, is like doing specific things over time. Like you want to grow your quadriceps, right? Or you want to grow your biceps in the gym. If you just add more volume and don't change anything else, you're not helping yourself.
No.
You can keep gains from something with literally like a ninth of the volume. It's insane how little you can do it to maintain.
Like if you're doing 27 sets a week maybe on your quads, and you could shrink that down to 3 sets just to maintain. So it's all right to have periods of priority, and weave that around a little bit. Like you don't have to feel like you have to do everything all the time. Like if you want to improve your speed for a bit but you don't want to lose your strength, just put your strength on the back burner a little bit. Just do maybe 1 session a week, maintain your strength, and then increase, and just like feel this, move it around a little bit. Don't just always add. It's never like subtract.
So I talked about this just now. It's maintenance. It's having that maintenance. So for me, it's never a question of can I run that distance? It's always just a question of how fast can I run that distance? So because I always stay in a maintenance mode, going out and running a half marathon, a marathon, an ultra, I'm confident that unless I break something during that run, that I can cover those distances. All I will do is adjust my training, and it's adjust, not add, to make sure that I can run those distances faster. So over the winter period, we kind of talked about that sort of off saying winter. I mean, it's still winter, but November, December, early January, I was in a maintenance mode, and I was just staying low heart rate aerobic just over and over again, and just getting those kilometers in. Absolutely comfortable that I can cover most distances off the back of that. Then, as an event arises, you just get specific to that event. So you start getting faster and more dialed into the pace that you want to be for that event. And again, I'm not adding that extra layer of work. I'm not going, well, here's my maintenance mode. I'm now going to add in my speed work and my tempo work and my long run, and suddenly do 3 times as many runs, but 4 times the volume. What I'm actually going to do is adjust my maintenance mode. What is the minimum amount of work that I can do from a maintenance point of view to stay aerobically fit? And then just bring in those other bits. So I start to replace it. So instead of like 3 hours a week of running in a low heart rate, I might do 1 hour because that's all I need to be in that aerobic zone. And then the rest of it is going to be at those higher, faster paces.
Right.
And of course, naturally, because you're running faster, you're going to cover more distance anyway. So you start to get more volume in anyway, just a little bit. And it might only be 5 or 10k a week, but that's all you need sometimes. It's not adding it on top and doubling your work.
Doubling the work.
And of course, exhausting yourself and everything else that comes with it, risk of injury and so on. And I think that is just the huge mistake that people make. If I want to squat heavier, I don't necessarily need to squat more. I just need to start squatting heavier. I need to progressively up my weight. So I'm just going to, I don't know, let's say I'm doing a 5x5 program. We'll keep it really simple. It's numbers that most people are going to understand. If I'm doing 5x5, I might have a maintenance mode where every week I go up to, we'll work off of that 100 kilo again. Let's say I do 5x5 week on week, and I build up to 80 kilos week after week after week. And then in my head, I get that, well, I want to build up to 100 kilos. I'm not now suddenly going to do 8x5 and like start adding 80, 90, 100. I'm going to adjust my 5x5 so that I can get my 100 kilos in that 5x5. And exactly like you just said, I'm not layering it on top and doing more and more volume and fatiguing myself in that way. I'm just adjusting what I'm currently doing to build up to where I want to be.
100%. I think to end on, I think this kind of comes back to this age-old principle of general adaptation syndrome, right? So the alarm stage when you first expose a body to a stressor, the resistance to that stressor, and then hopefully this is what you want to avoid, is exhaustion. So when you overdo that stressor, you enter that exhaustion phase, 100%. And then you physically you're just destroying your body essentially. So it's all trying to avoid that happening. And I would suggest people actually have a good read of general adaptation syndrome because it is quite fascinating. But yeah, I think we should finish on that.
I think that's a great place to finish it.
To finish it. So we'll see you in episode 3. Hopefully with some different clothes this time. I promise I'll wear something different.
I'll wear different next time.
But yeah, I'm loving this new setup. Hopefully we'll be able to get another mic sorted for next time.
I think so, yeah.
But I think I think it's been fine anyway. I hope people love the blue lighting. We tried to do Michael Bay lighting in here, bit of orange and blue. So
I feel it's cinematic.
I think blue and blue does the trick. But yeah, we make the best of what we got. But yeah, right. I'll see you in the next episode.